Well, good morning. I'm so tickled to be with you today on this very cold Minnesota Sunday morning. I'm Vika Miller, and I've been doing this thriving exploration since I was really young. I noticed when I was 6 years old that there was something going on that I didn't expect with the people in my family and kids at school and stuff. It seemed like everybody was misunderstanding each other, and kind of because they were misunderstanding, they were kind of hurting each other, and it just didn't make sense to me. There's just something in my bones that feels, excuse me, that just is absolutely convinced that we're born to thrive. And we're born to have lovely, harmonious relationships with each other. So as a 6-year-old, I'm like, there's something wrong with this picture here. And when I was 12, and I learned the scientific method in Mr. Richter's 7th grade science class, I thought, this is it. I can actually experiment and discover, as long as I'm willing to tell myself the truth all the time, even if it's something, not great about me, I can discover what it takes to be a happy human with other human beings. And I did discover what it takes. And I'm going to share the core of that with you today. And so I really trust the signals that my body gives me. It's going to be one of the things we'll talk about today. And I'm just noticing I'm like a little choked up. I've been talking for half hour, nothing going on in my throat. And suddenly the camera goes on and I'm a little choked up. So I just want to notice and acknowledge that. One of the things that I discovered that makes life work is to not pretend. Just be real about what's happening, to be authentic and transparent about what's happening here. And so there you go. There's a little bit of my I like to call it human underwear. Like, yep, something's going on here. So I just want to acknowledge that. So in this journey of looking to discover what it takes to be a happy human with other humans, I just want to acknowledge that one of the things that I've noticed is that if there are other humans around, something's going to be annoying. We don't always enjoy what each other are doing, and we're kind of being playful about that right now. But I really want to acknowledge we're dealing with a really extreme time in the world right now. The degree to which we are not enjoying what some other people are doing is pretty extreme. And it actually doesn't matter which sort of set of beliefs we're coming from, we're really quite upset with each other quite a bit of the time. And what I'm going to share with you today is going to give you a way to understand what anyone is doing and find the legitimate truth and the reaching for life, reaching for thriving that lies underneath that. And so it's the thing that helps me be peaceful and helps me not be too alarmed so that I can be with and respond to the challenges of our time in a way that's in alignment with my values. So I'm excited to share that with you today. And hopefully, whatever I'm choked up about will let go enough for me to not be adding all of that extra sound into our recording especially. So I want to start by asking you, why are you here this morning? There are a lot of things that you could be doing on a cold Minnesota Sunday morning besides being here. And so I wonder if you'd be willing to share, just very briefly, what it is that had you be here today. I'm curious, how many of you are here just because it's the 9 a.m. service here at Spiritual Community, and you're here every single time? Yep. So you come every week because why? What is it that brings you every week? Learning. Thank you. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, what was that second part you said? Learning in general and learning about yourself? Mm-hmm.
Perfecting the journey.
Perfecting the journey? And is that something that you come for every week, or is there something in this topic that attracted you?
I come mostly this week.
Okay. What else?
To support you personally because you're my friend and let you know that I love you and I'm willing to make this journey.
Jeffrey has heard all of this many, many times, but oh, it is down here. No worries. Here, let me.
Don't touch anything.
Okay, it's just on. Okay, so would you repeat what you said?
I'm here because I love you, Vika, as a friend, and I support you in all of these beautiful ventures.
Thank you. So why don't you pass that back? So I just want to acknowledge that Jeffrey is sort of my twin. The work that we do is extremely similar. So you know how when you're like really excited about something and it just, it's like the thing that gives your life so much meaning and joy, and then you have somebody that totally gets it? You know how that feels? Do you like that when that happens? Yeah, Jeffrey's my BFF in that regard. So yeah, it's so sweet to have you here. How about you?
I think when I come here, it's a moment of mindfulness, taking myself out of my world and everything else and just focusing on other things, on mindfulness.
Thank you. How about for you?
Yeah, I would say connection to community and to source energy.
Mm-hmm.
Like-minded people.
And I'm wondering, is it also like-hearted people?
Pardon?
Like-hearted people?
Oh, yes, of course.
Beautiful. How about for you?
All of the above.
All of the above.
All of the above.
Okay, thank you. So, no worries. Now I want to start to take a look at the 3 key secrets that turn pain and stress into health and happiness. Would you pass those around? And as you take a look at that, you'll see that the first key secret, and perhaps the single most important thing to get really clear about from my side of the elephant, is that life is about thriving. Everything we think, believe, say, and do is an attempt to thrive, to feel better. And I would argue that feeling better and thriving is the only sensible reason to ever do anything. I mean, why would you ever do something intending to feel worse or intending to detract from your well-being or your health? It wouldn't make any sense, would it? And in fact, for any living thing, I mean, it's all expenditure of life energy, right? If we're expending our life energy in ways that diminish our life capacity, diminish our life energy, that makes no sense at all, does it? Now, this is not to say that everything we believe, think, say, and do does contribute to our thriving. That's another question altogether. But I say to you, underneath anything, anyone, or any living thing is ever doing is a reaching for thriving, a reaching for more life, to bring more source energy into their being and out into the world. And I see you nodding. This makes sense, right? So, how many of you would enjoy being genuinely happy in a meaningful way? Yeah, everybody, right? Well, the number one secret is that if you want to feel better, if you want to feel happy, you have to learn how to thrive. Because thriving is what leaves us feeling good and feeling happy. So finally, we have a pathway to become happy and to be doing it very intentionally. And I'll continue to share these core elements of what overall I call the Thrive Roadmap. There actually is a roadmap that can take you to thriving, and in particular, thriving for you. Because what makes you thrive as an individual isn't going to be exactly what makes me thrive. But there's a caveat to that, which I'll get to in a moment. So I declare that it's our birthright to thrive. If that weren't part of the core design of life, then every time the weather got bad, case in point, -1 degrees, driving over here, Fahrenheit, then like a whole species would die out, right? There's got to be some room and some resilience, and that is a core principle that you can count on anywhere you go, looking at any species, any individual, any group of individuals. They're just trying to thrive, feel better, and be happy. Do you buy that? Yeah. So if that's the case, then the next question is, well, what does it take to thrive as a human being? And that brings us to the second secret, that there's something called essential life needs that every species has, that is by definition what brings them to thriving. Every species has their own set of essential life needs. And these are universal within a species. And I'm going to share those with you now. Could you pass those around? Thank you. You'll see on this list that there are 10 major categories of life needs, and then examples of life needs underneath each category. Some of those life needs appear under more than one category, but this is the beginning of our roadmap to thriving, because life needs are our pathways to thriving. Now, we all know, as human beings, there are some things that we need in order to thrive. What are the ones, and if you can grab the mic when you speak, what are some of the things that you learned since you were a little person, things that human beings have to have? Use the mic if you would.
I can go. Water and food.
Yeah. Things you've known from since you're little, yay, hi to a grasshopper. What did you learn?
Exercise, movement.
Exercise and movement. I didn't learn that one as a little one. Anybody else not learn that one? Like, nobody said anything about moving. I can sit for 8 hours a day at my desk and it's fine. In fact, my company really likes it when I do that. Certainly have learned that since, for sure. Yeah. Any others?
Shelter.
Shelter, exactly. So we're starting to get this picture, right? Have you noticed that those things that we were taught as little ones are things that we need in order to not die? Air, water. Were you going to say something?
You know, I grew up in a big extended family, and in part, which I didn't appreciate till a lot later, is that having a safe space to always be myself.
Ah,
And that, it just takes a life to learn, but it's like, it was there.
you were very fortunate to have that.
Very fortunate, and I appreciate it.
I'm just curious, by a show of hands, how many of us grew up in a household that said, you get to be who you are and we have space for that? Raise your hand if that happened for you. Oh yeah, no, there's still things to do there. So I've done this talk in front of a lot of people, and there are, thank goodness, always a few hands that go up. But the vast majority of us did not experience that as children. In fact, the vast majority of us experienced the opposite, that who we are and what's true for us, what we need, is not welcome at best and could be a big problem that really needs to be suppressed or gotten rid of. Unfortunately, that's much, much more common. So I just want to distinguish the food, clothing, air, water, shelter. Those are the things that we need just to survive. They're not what we need to thrive. Now, two of you mentioned exercise and this room to be who we are. You will find those on this list, because this is not a list of what we need to survive. It's a list of what we need to thrive. And I'm just going to go over the key categories real quickly here. And we've been speaking to some of these. We need physical safety, stability, sustenance, and health. That's one category. And we need several levels of connection. Shared humanity. I might not like you at all. I might not want to even have you in my space. I don't want you in my village. But I can still acknowledge that we're both human beings and that we both have inherent value and have a right to be here, right? And we can agree not to connect without there being any hostility or dehumanization, right? That's what that category is addressing. The next thing that we need, these are roughly hierarchical, is some shared external reality. If we're going to have any chance of connecting and getting along in any way, we're going to have to agree that there's a table here. And you're sitting on a chair and I'm standing. Like, there's just some basic things we're going to have to agree on, or we are literally not dealing with the same world. And I know that we've all had experiences where we don't agree about shared reality. Like, we don't agree about what was said or what was done. But if we had a camera, we would be able to tell exactly what was said or done, right? So there is a way to verify external reality. I sometimes call this consensus reality. Like, we can arrive at something. But as you know, I can feel the energy in the room. It's like, that is not the only level of reality that matters. And I'm going to get to that other level in a minute. But when we have shared reality, the next thing that becomes possible to increase our thriving is acceptance and belonging. Again, I might not particularly enjoy you, but now I'm saying you can be in my village. We share enough reality that it works for us to work together, to support both of us in this sort of physical, impersonal way. It's just a very basic level of acceptance and belonging. You're welcome in my village. But if we want to go deeper, if we want to thrive more as human beings, it becomes essential to recognize that we each have our own personal reality, our own internal world, the world of all the sensations and the meanings, the beliefs, the memories that make up this being over here that is unique in all the world. And there's a world there, and there's a world there, and there's a whole world there. And I don't know about you, but I'm embarrassed to tell you that I was 36 years old before I learned in a class in my master's program that, oh my God, this world is like what I see and what makes sense to me is just mine. And yes, there's overlap that I share with other people in so many ways, but this is a culture of one right here. And there's a culture of one there and there and there. And so if we really want to connect the way that human beings are designed to, I have to be willing to know and share what my world is without imposing it on you. And you need to share and express your world without imposing it on me. And when we make space, like you were referring to earlier, for each of our personal realities and include those in our own world. Like, you've got your own world over there, but when I know and understand it, I can include that in my personal reality. One of the things people include in their personal reality about me is that I'm an interrupter. Not my favorite quality about myself. But despite decades of trying to completely eliminate this from my behavior samples, I have failed, and I know I just need to tell people. So I interrupt, and it isn't a sign of disrespect. It isn't a sign that I think what I have to say is more important than you. I just get so excited sometimes, and apparently too excited, too eager to leave me able to control that all the time. And so I apologize in advance. And if you need to continue speaking when I'm trying, just put your hand up. That's all I need to know that this is really not welcome right now. And then another circuit trips in my brain. So I know you've had this experience of having to navigate these kinds of things with other people, right? But that's all in this realm of understanding our own and honoring each other's personal reality. Now, what happens when you start to connect with people like this? Again, we're not necessarily saying anything about enjoying each other's personal reality. I'm not saying I like it. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm saying it has a place at the table of humanity and reality for me. And I will consider it because you're here and you matter. And depending on how much I do or don't enjoy it, I will make choices on the frequency, the intensity, and the duration of our interaction and involvement based on how much I enjoy your personal reality. And this is completely normal, right? I mean, newsflash, we don't like everybody. We don't enjoy everybody, right? Part of this world of thriving that I've discovered says that just because I don't enjoy you doesn't mean I'm rejecting you. It doesn't mean I'm pushing you out of my village. It doesn't mean I'm saying you're not human or you're not worthy. It's just like, yeah, I don't like that flavor of human. And I guarantee you not everybody likes Vika flavor either. So what a different world if we give ourselves permission to not particularly enjoy each other without having to exclude each other from our village. I can just say, I'm not rejecting you. I just want to play another game. I want a different flavor. So I just want to pause for a moment there and just hear what's coming up for you as I'm sort of weaving together this picture of what it takes for humans to thrive. What's happening for you as you're hearing this?
I like your distinctions, and I appreciate your thoughtfulness and your openness to how we interact with other people. When you talk about, we don't have to necessarily like people, we can be around them and, engage them. It sounds really good to me. And at the same time, I'm thinking about family members who are unsafe to be around.
Mm-hmm.
And if I know you and your message, that's an opportunity for me to take care of myself when I'm triggered around those people. It doesn't mean I have to be horrible to them.
Mm-hmm.
And what an opportunity for my growth in that process. But I'm raising the question, when people are actively violent or really unsafe, how do you approach that in what you're talking about?
Well, you're touching on one of my very favorite topics in the world, and that is this question about healthy boundaries. I define healthy boundaries as the conditions we create and the limits we set in order to create and sustain our own thriving. So I'll weave in another point here. Given that I am the one connected to the sensations of this body, does it make sense to you that ultimately I am responsible for figuring out what supports my thriving, what meets or doesn't meet my own life needs? I'm the authority about that, right? Now, this doesn't mean that I don't get help from others, because part of being human means we swim in a relational field from cradle to grave. Whether we like it or not, that is how we're designed. Everything about our psychobiophysiology functions inside of this world of relationship. So, by definition, we contribute to each other in myriad, countless ways, all the time, giving and receiving support for thriving. But ultimately, I have to decide what works for me and what doesn't. And that brings us back to that frequency, intensity, or duration of involvement or interaction. If I experience someone as consistently behaving in ways that diminish my well-being because they don't meet some of these specific life needs, then I have a couple of options. The first option is to say, hey, here's my personal reality. Would you like to hear it? When you do X, this is what happens for me, and I don't enjoy that. Would you be willing to consider doing something else? And when we're talking about someone who's unsafe, what we're talking about is someone where we've tried to have that conversation and it hasn't gone well. It could be that they say, oh, sure, and then nothing changes, which looks good, but still doesn't work. Or it could be the other extreme, which is, really hostile, blaming, invalidating. We've all had some experience with that, I think. And so we have to be willing to do whatever we have to do to not have that interaction happen. I had this experience with my former fiance, who's a beautiful-hearted man with a lot of PTSD. And when he would get triggered, another side of him would come out, and he would not even remember what he said or did later. And so that became impossible because we didn't even have shared external reality. And if he didn't know what he had done, he couldn't really regret it, and it couldn't change. And so I have very minimal contact with him at this point. But I did find the level of connection that would work so that I would feel safe and have a sense of shared reality. And I found a distance that really works. There may be other people in our life where there's no distance that works. And then we have to give ourselves permission to set that boundary and to not let them close enough to have any kind of impact on us. Now, this is one of the challenges that we're facing in the United States right now, where we have a leader of the country that is doing things that may not directly impact many of us, but really violates our values. And so there is an impact, and it's not an impact that we can just get away from, because it's affecting our country, and it's affecting people that we care about. And so certainly a much more challenging situation. However, I want to remind you again, though, that everyone, including those who are doing things that violently oppose our deepest values, are just trying to feel better. They're just trying to thrive. So it's extremely important, especially in the world of our shared beliefs, which I feel confident about, or you wouldn't be here in this place on a Sunday morning. We don't want to dehumanize the dehumanizers, because then in effect we're doing the same thing that they are. We can say this behavior, this use of power is completely unacceptable, but we need to find the humanity, the little boy or the little girl that went through something horrific in order to become so disconnected from the community of life and from their awareness of their impact on other people. So I just want to drop in here, it's like a little teaser for later. I define narcissism as someone who has had so much trauma that their brain has lost its capacity for empathy. And I know this because in my relationship with my former fiance, I had so much violence coming at me, verbal and emotional violence, that I started to lose my capacity for empathy. And I watched my brain stop caring about how I impacted him. That's when I knew it had to stop. Because there's nothing more important to me than my connection with life itself and my ability to sense the life within the people around me. But if I hadn't known that, or if that kind of treatment had happened to me starting from when I was small, like it did with him, I could have lost that capacity for empathy, especially when I'm upset. So long ago, I wouldn't even know that I had lost it. I have to be clear, my former fiance is a very good-hearted narcissist. He would never want to hurt anyone. But I'm betting you've had moments of upset when you didn't care at all about the other person in an interaction you were having. You were so angry or so upset. All you could focus on is how do you protect yourself? How do you take care of yourself? True? You've experienced this. So normally it's a momentary thing, right? This momentary overload in our brains that shuts down our capacity for empathy. But if you have enough violence coming at you, enough experience of your life needs not being met for long enough, or from young enough age, you can really, it's kind of like having a broken leg, like that part of you just isn't functioning anymore. In a lot of cases, it can be restored, but only if the person wants it to. It's possible to get so far where there's no returning from that level of injury. And it does seem to me that that is the case with our president. I have tremendous compassion for the little boy that very clearly was absolutely tortured on many dimensions to become the man that he is today. And I don't think he should be allowed to own a goldfish, let alone have impact on millions, billions of people. Do you see how that works, though? If we can continue to see the humanity underneath, it keeps us from shutting down our own capacity for empathy, which, staying in that relational field of attunement and care is how things get healed and transformed. And so we don't want to lose that capacity for ourselves. Any questions about that piece? What's coming up for you as you hear how this actually works in everyday life? Are you mapping this onto your own challenging situations or your relationships with your own challenging people and getting a little different view about what kind of doorways you might be able to open in your connection with them?
Yes, for sure. Question, when you are starting to feel like you don't have empathy, and you're an incredibly empathetic person, that's a big part of who you are, and it's a close relationship, what are techniques for turning it into, I just have empathy for you, as opposed to, shutting down? I mean, part of it's breaking bad habits, part of it's, not letting yourself in the cycle. I know all that, but it's just it's really hard when the other person does it,
Yeah, I love that question. What I recommend is go to this list and find, you could start with the life need category first, or you can just scan the list, find the life needs that aren't being met for you in that situation. And let yourself feel what it's like to really experience, be there, feeling what it's like to not have that life need met, have that negative impact happening to you. Have that with yourself, or ask someone else to empathize with you for what that's like. We can't skip over that because it connects us with our bodies and our experience, and it validates that. It matters. It shows every part of our brain that what's happening to us matters. It is happening, it matters, and it's uncomfortable. We have to be willing and able to feel that discomfort long enough to arrive in our life and in our body. One of the biggest ways that we reclaim our power to thrive is to actually let ourselves have our experience, because if we don't, if it's like, oh, that's so painful, I'm just going to distract or somehow get out of my body and not feel it, shut it down, avoid it, deny it, numb it, whatever, we're no longer there. We're no longer present and available to use our power. And so that's the first step, to actually allow ourselves to experience what it's like for that to happen. And then fill ourselves up with the experience of the met life need. What would it be like? What has it been like? What would we like it to feel like when that need is fully met? To be fully seen, heard, respected, and connected. Whatever the life need is. You can be the director in the movie of your life here in your imagination. And this works because the brain can't tell the difference between something we're imagining, something that's happening right now, or something that we're remembering from the past. It can't tell the difference. And so when we imagine, just let myself feel what it's like, or remember a time when that life need was met, we are getting some nourishment for that life need right then and there. And what we see is the alarm goes down and our capacity for empathy returns. But first, we have to get that for ourselves before we can give it to someone else. Does that answer your question? Yeah. And just to be clear, this always works better when we do it with other people. And one-on-one is for sure better than alone, but in a group is even better, which is why so much of the work that I do is done in groups and involves exactly that process. We are able to actually metabolize this challenging experience and let it move through us so it doesn't get stuck. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. I want to just go through the rest of these life needs. We stopped at honored personal reality. And I start with that because if someone doesn't give me room to be who I am or discover who I am, it's a lot harder to meet the next life need, which is self-connection, self-care, and wholeness. I can't discover who I am if you're constantly telling me how to be and that this is the way to be, and if you're not that, whatever it is at best like not welcome or worse, a big problem, right? So when we have that room that a couple of you mentioned you had as kids, to just be who we are, discover, experience things, and then identify, like, what are our favorite ways to meet certain life needs? We have our universal life needs, and then we have our preferences for how those life needs get met. A really obvious example of this is our food preferences, right? We all need food, but I'm betting for some of you, spinach is not on the food list. Like, if you were gonna die, you might eat some spinach, but other than that, no way. I love spinach. So just one little example. In the realm of connection, we all need connection and belonging, right? Well, I love connecting with people, but I have a massive introvert streak. So I need a lot of alone time. And I know other people that don't need hardly any alone time. They love to be with people all the time. And so we have to make adjustments for these particular preferences that we each have. And the only way to find out what our preferences are is to experiment. We have to try things out and see how they feel. But we're not going to do that unless we get that room, that honored personal reality, to do that experimenting. Once we have some clarity about what our preferences are, it becomes really important to have some room to actually choose, the freedom to choose and to exercise our power to choose. Our power to choose is one of the most important sources of power that we have. The power to choose what our attention is spent on, the power to choose where we spend our energy. And so that's the next area of life needs. Is this making sense? Do you agree that human beings actually do need these things in order to thrive at the highest level? Did anybody here already know about all of those and tracking those in your life? When things go wrong, you're like, oh no, I'm not getting the choice that I really need in this moment. I actually don't know what I want right now. I need to kind of start to figure that out. I need to try some things out, and then if I don't like what happens, then I know it wasn't that. I'll try something else. Yeah. The next thing that we need on the next page is variety, play, creation, and growth. And this is a fun one because all mammals need this. All mammals have a need for variety. If you're a gerbil and you have no change in your environment, and you have a choice to go from this environment with no change and an environment with, new things happening, you choose to be in the environment where there's some change, some newness, novelty. It's imperative for mammal brains to have that. Now, when we have all of those life needs met, it becomes possible to experience something that I call attunement. We live inside of relational fields. I have a relational field with myself where I can sense into what's happening in here. I can sense, like, is everything in harmony or is there something a little off? And I can also sense into our relational field between you and me. I can feel how present. You probably know this, like you're with someone that you love, and it's like something just doesn't feel right in your connection. You don't know what it is. Could be coming from you, could be coming from them. Who knows? But you can feel there's something there that's off. And of course, when we're feeling into that relational field, when we're attuned and everything is feeling great, that's bliss. So this capacity for attunement and to be in sync in that attunement, to be delight. I know your personal reality and I delight in it. It's such a special feeling, and you've all experienced it, right? This is what we're starting to talk about when we start to talk about love, which I would like to set that word aside and either define it every time we use it or use something else. So there are moments when I have experience of just so much, is it love or is it, I am so enjoying and appreciating the integrity and the presence and the generosity of sharing who you are that you're bringing to this situation. If I said I love you, that's actually what I mean. And it's all in that realm of attunement. So you see, love is not one of the categories because there's so many different, I love pizza. Pretty sure I'm not attuned with that pizza. And so often what we mean when we say we love someone is, I really like what you're doing and how it feels to me right now. This is where so much conditional love comes from, right? It's like, I love you when you're doing what I like. And this is why I like to say, well, I enjoy it. I enjoy how I feel. So that when you're doing something that I don't enjoy, I don't get confused and think I no longer love you. I like to define love as the desire to see someone else thriving. Now, love as a noun. Love as a verb would be, I am now intentionally looking for ways that I can contribute to your thriving. And who gets to decide if I'm contributing to your thriving or not? You do. So I can't say, well, I'm just loving you when I, do something really smothering. When I tell you how to edit your PhD thesis instead of saying, I have these suggestions. Do those get you where you want to go? When we impose our ideas about what would be good for someone on someone else. Not love, which is a great topic for February, right? That's coming up very soon. I am going to be doing a little video on what love is. If you want to check my website out this week, very timely. And then the last category is connection with life itself, with Source, God, Goddess, Spirit, the Force, whatever name you know it by. This connection with life itself. And of course, we feel that, right? We feel life energy coming into us, so long as we're not shut down in some way. So those are the categories of life needs, and then the specific words underneath them. And I ask you to really make this part of your life, because anytime you're not feeling so good, it means that one or more of these life needs are getting depleted and need your attention. Which brings me to the next thing I want to talk about, which is on page 2 of your 3 secrets. We're coming to secret number 3. And that is that feelings are feedback. They're guides, literally, they're designed to tell us, are we moving towards or away from thriving in that moment? Are our life needs being nourished, or are they being depleted? So whatever's happening for you, especially if there's something that feels uncomfortable or painful or excruciating or alarming, it's telling you you have one or more life need that isn't being met, that you need to tend to. And if you don't, it's no different than leaving a hand on a hot stove. It's going to harm your well-being. And if you do it long enough, it will actually create physical symptoms. I want to tell you a really quick little story. Some of you may know Gabor Mate, fabulous physician who is doing wonderful work in this realm of thriving. He doesn't call it that, but it's really what it's about. And he has noticed in his practice as a family doctor that there are certain illnesses that people get with a certain persistent chronic area of life need that isn't met. And there are more and more doctors and scientists that are actually mapping. And as you might know, Louise Hay did a lot of that. But it's down to the point where the nurses who run the lab tests to see if you have ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, with some 96 or something % accuracy, can tell the physician if the person has ALS or not by how nice they are. If you want to get ALS, what you do is you be completely self-abnegating, completely sacrifice all of your needs for the sake of others. People absolutely love ALS people because they're so generous and they're so loving and they're so amazing. But nobody is noticing that they're not taking care of any of their own life needs. Lou Gehrig was famous for playing every single game of every single season, even when he was injured, and for being upset if the coach pressured another player to play when they were injured. He really harmed himself a lot, not listening to the feelings, to the signals of his body and his emotions. He shoved all of that aside. And that's how you get ALS. So it's extremely important to feel our feelings, but especially not to stop there. They're just guides, right? We don't want to stay in our feelings. They're the fire alarm, right? We want to say, oh, I need to attend to my life needs. When we attend to our life needs, those unpleasant, uncomfortable, painful, excruciating alarm, whatever the level is, those feelings diminish. So these are the 3 secrets that enable you to decode and resolve any challenge in any part of your life. Now, I want to just give a nod to this special category of feelings of alarm. You all know what it's like when you get upset about something, fight, flight, appease, or freeze, strongly enough that you flip your lid. And it's like another personality comes out. That personality is your survival self. And all it's trying to do is make it to the next moment. We want to attend to our feelings and our life needs, because if we don't, we spend more and more time in our survival self. And it's our survival selves that are causing all the problems in our lives, with our health, and in our world. So if we listen to and honor our feelings and use them to find the life needs that aren't being met, and then learn how to meet those life needs, we are able to thrive, and we're also able to hold others with more empathy and stay in a thriving brain state so we can better solve our problems. Because we all know what it's like to be in a room where the person whose perspective is running things is the most upset, survival self-captured person in the room. And we need to stop doing that. And I just want to note, if you look at these reasons why you came here tonight, you will find that there are life needs associated with each one that you were looking to meet. That's why you came, because it would meet some of your life needs. That's all the time that I have today. Just want to check and see, was this helpful for you? Does this shine a light and provide you with a roadmap to actually decode these feelings of discomfort at any level and know that you can turn to your life needs list. You don't even have to identify the feeling. All you have to know is this doesn't feel right. And you can start inquiring into that. Well, I'm so happy to have been able to share this with you today. It's just really fun for me. It's my favorite conversation to have in the world. I do have a lot of more to share with regard to what happens when we do get upset, because managing that is a whole other layer of using this information that allows us to have choice no matter what's happening. But we have to be able to recognize when our survival self is running and learn how to get that part of us out of the driver's seat. So if you're interested in that, my contact information is on the materials that you got. Reach out to me. I would love to share more with you about what happens in the next step on this thriving roadmap. Thank you so much.